I want you to watch this clip of episode 2 of The Mandalorian season 3. This scene is among the most morally depraved of the many on-screen depredations I have borne witness to in 2023.
Alright, well, I don't appreciate the tone of voice, but I'll fix it. No, I should charge you more. Is he gone? Right, let's get this thing back together again. Quickly, before he sees you. Go, 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 go. Put those parts back on the speeder. Paint them so they look different.
While the crime itself is reprehensible, that alone is not sufficient to make this scene so morally repulsive. It's the fact that the perpetrator of this heinous fraud is being portrayed in a positive light. Disney Lucasfilm, the studio from which The Mandalorian Season 3 was defecated, think this woman is one of the good guys. A long time ago, in a civilization with moral standards far, far superior to our own, this unscrupulous swindler would have been relegated in the minds of both the creators and the viewers to that caste of sentient filth known as
scum and villainy.
As she should be, but this is no longer the case. Today, audiences are being presented with female characters who are clearly villains, but who, we are told, are heroes. Standards which, in previous times, would have cast a female character as a villain no longer apply. In 1973, Richard Nixon became the first president of the United States to resign from office, following his impeachment during the Watergate scandal. It had emerged over the course of the investigation that Nixon had ordered the setting up of an operation to spy on the Democratic presidential candidate, and later approved plans to cover up his administration's involvement in the affair. Several years later, in an interview with Robert Frost, Nixon explained his legal rationale for these actions.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
Hollywood seem to have adopted the same argument when it comes to the actions of their female protagonists. When a man does it, it's wrong and he is a villain. But when a woman does it,
that means that it is not illegal.
Some working stiff goes to a mechanic to get his transport fixed so he can get to his shitty job and keep his family fed for another day. Turns out this poor broke bastard was getting conned by the mechanic. But it's okay, because she's a woman, and when a woman does it,
that means that it is not illegal.
A small boy is physically assaulted. Well, a girl did it, so
it is not illegal.
A large cave mammal is brutally murdered while attempting to defend her own home from invaders. No worries, this vicious act of animal cruelty and slaughter was committed by a strong, powerful, brave, and stunning woman.
I love you.
So,
it is not illegal.
His name is Robert Paulson.
A police officer gets hit in the balls.
No tap!
But it's fine, because this assault on the man's crown jewels was carried out by a diverse female character. So,
it is not illegal.
A $40,000 police car is destroyed in a pro-vagrancy, anti-police, mostly peaceful protest.
Where is it?
You shrank a cop car?
Mostly a protest.
Not a problem, because a teenage girl boss science genius did it.
That means that it is not illegal.
A soldier trying to do his duty is knocked unconscious in a bloodthirsty escalation of a mere misunderstanding.
Listen.
Then almost killed in a deliberate collision with his vehicle. Then face raped. These assaults all carried out by the same culprit, but as it turns out, these actions are actually laudable because they were committed by a woman.
That means that it is not illegal.
In every single example you have just seen, the female committing the not illegal crime is presented as a protagonist, a good guy. Hollywood standards of morality and behavior for female characters are completely different from their standards for men. If a woman does it, it's fine. In fact, it's awesome. She's a total girl boss. If a man does it, He's a heinous villain and must be destroyed before he carries on his rampage of destruction, preferably by a woman. Hollywood movies and streaming series have a behavioural double standard when it comes to the presentation of the on-screen actions committed by male and female characters. Let's look at the examples of this double standard in more detail, starting with the most recent. In Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Helen Shaw, the character originally intended as Indy's replacement, cons Indy, just as the National Socialist archaeologist Elsa did.
You should have listened to your father.
Steals a priceless ancient artifact from Indy, just as Belloc did.
Again, we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away.
Which she intends to sell to enrich herself, just as a young Dr. Octopus intended to do.
Throw me the idol, I throw you the whip. Give me the whip.
Adios, señor.
Hires a thieving street rat as her running dog, again taking a page from Belloc's playbook. And knocks out Indy, which a heavyweight boxer failed to do. But none of that can be considered immoral, because
That means that it is not illegal.
thankfully, we won't be seeing any more of this felonious conwench, as the movie bombed and took the Indy franchise down with it. The fans did not show up for that one, choosing instead to scupper the franchise and salute as it went down than to see it used by the enemy to carry on their war of moral inversion and cultural destruction. In Lar 18, Offma, that is Ariel updated for a modern audience, steals Prince Eric's victory over the Sea Witch, and there will be a lot of theft at male expense in this video. In The Little Mermaid, Prince Eric heroically kamikazes himself into Ursula's sea monster form, displaying his impressive skills of seamanship as he steers his vessel through the storm straight at the incarnation of toxic feminist ambition. In Lar 18, Offma just spins the helm and the ship crashes into Ursula, securing for herself and for all
Kind.
a glorious victory, not just over the Sea Witch, but over all.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
This is of course not the first time male achievement has been updated for a modern audience. In Lar 17, remade Wendy, who is played by Mia Jovovich's daughter, because
By an astonishing coincidence.
she just happened to be the best actress for the role. I will be referring to her as Minnie Jovovich. Minnie Jovovich saves herself after being marched off the plank instead of being saved by Peter Pan, because men aren't allowed to save women anymore, which is why the rescue of Tiger Lily in Peter Pan was replaced with the rescue of Minnie Jovovich's brothers in Lar 17. And at the end of Lar 17, it is not the intervention of Peter Pan that rescues everyone, because
This magic belongs to no boy.
and instead, Minnie Jovovich saves the day by deploying the magic that previously belonged to Peter Pan, but which is now the exclusive property of females.
No boy.
But the gender-based redistribution of this magic is to be applauded, because when you're a woman, theft
It is not illegal.
in the cacophony of cinematic agony which caused countless millions of fans to cry out in pain before being suddenly silenced by an inability to care anymore. Star Wars Episode 9 Weekend at Palpy's. The previously dead Emperor Palpatine has been resurrected so he can be killed by a much more diverse, much more female version of the Chosen One who will bring balance to the Force. This position can of course not be held by a man because, after all,
The Force is female.
Excuse me, but I would submit that the notion of a gendered force is clearly an imposition of modern-day real-world identity politics and feminist imperatives onto a fictional universe.
Also, the destruction of the Empire never really happened because that was achieved by the male leadership of Luke, who defeated Darth Vader and the Emperor.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Han Solo, who led the assault on the second Death Star's protective shield. And Lando Calrissian, who led the attack against the second Death Star and kept the fleet in the battle at the critical moment when their will to fight was flagging.
Yes, I said closer. Move as close as you can and engage those Star Destroyers at point-blank range.
At that close range, we won't last long against those Star Destroyers.
We'll last longer than we will against that Death Star. And we might just take a few of them with us.
And we can't have that. In the new, updated Star Wars, this male victory is scrapped and a new female victory put in its place, this time led by Rey. And a strong, diverse, powerful, and body-positive female character riding a horse on top of a Star Destroyer.
Not bad for one lesson!
You had a good teacher!
The Guynification of the Empire's destruction cannot be criticised as lazy, plagiaristic cultural vandalism because it was done on behalf of womankind. Therefore,
it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
In Jurassic Park, we learned that the brilliant work of the male scientists who originally created the dinosaur clones was, in fact, really the work of a single brilliant female scientist whose work was ripped off and claimed by the jealous,
incompetent men.
How else could these miracles of science have been created since, as history teaches us, all the best scientists were women? In Afro Queen, also known as the
Cleopatra was black
show, the creation of the Julian calendar is stolen from Julius Caesar and given to the
Queen of Kings.
There are many such examples of female characters being handed previously male achievements by politically motivated ideologues masquerading as writers and creatives who wish to portray the fairer sex as the superior sex. Obviously, there is not a single example of the opposite occurring. Don't hold your breath for a remake of Aliens featuring a brave, heroic man in a mech suit taking on the xenomorph queen while Ripley cowers in a corner.
Get away from her, you bitch!
In Lar 17, our hero, Mini Jovovich, begins her adventure by heroically besting her brothers in a sword fight, then pinning the destruction of a mirror she broke on them. Of course, if it were a boy doing this, he would have to be regarded as a rotten bully and a lying snitch. But Minnie's sexual anatomy shields her from such accusations.
Not illegal.
Later, we see Minnie attack a much smaller, younger boy, remade Peter Pan. Well, technically he's much older than her, but since he never grows up and, at least in the lore, lacks the ability to retain memories long term, she can be regarded as his elder. This slap is intended to establish Mini Jovovich's dominance over Remade.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
And to humiliate the character of Peter Pan, Remade's nominal role. Gone are the days of being a man means you gotta show up for work. Today, being a man means being put in your fucking place and staying there. Now, let's do a little experiment.
You wanna play a little game?
Let's reverse the genders in this scene and imagine how audiences would be expected to react to it.
You're a pirate, aren't you? It's every man for himself.
I don't think that, following this scene, the punk-haired male assailant would be presented to the audience as a hero, as Mini Jovovich is following her unprovoked and bloodthirsty onslaught against Remade. And how the male victim feels in this situation is a concern that can be discarded out of hand. Peter Pan, like Indiana Jones, is an iconic male character, and so must be humiliated. In Afro Queen?
Queen of Kings!
Sorry. In Afro Queen of Kings, Afro Queen is asked by a Roman soldier to go with him. She responds thusly. A magnificent and majestic display of girl boss empowerment. But for the tiny minority of viewers who don't think Afro's reaction is characteristic of a dangerously violent psychopath, let's change things up a little to make that clear.
I want to play a game.
Your Majesty, it is my duty to inform you that you are my prisoner. I have been instructed to escort you to your home. Please come with me.
I am a god. Do not disrespect me.
Moving on now to the black hole of moral depravity, the incarnation of the darkest impulses of the human mind made flesh, tortured in the blood-drenched chambers of a land abandoned by God, then fed through the twisted, putrid, and corrupt entrails of an intersectional obscenity designed to eradicate all traces of objective good in the world. Coming out the other end, an evil so unimaginably abhorrent that Lucifer himself would turn away from it in disgust. Velma. Among its many atrocities, the most criminal outrage committed by Velma is the mocking of a teenage boy for the insufficiency of his genitals.
His delicate teen heartthrob good looks stem from the fact that he hasn't gone through puberty yet.
It's not small, it's scared.
Fred's a rich white guy with a tiny dong. He did it.
You didn't mention Fred had a tiny dong.
Oh yeah, real baby carrot.
Because as sadistic and borderline psychotic as that is, it's just too funny not to have in the show. Now let's imagine that the target of the Velma writer's malice was not a teenage boy, but a girl. Her robe comes off as she is paraded in front of the media, revealing not much. And we are later treated to these side splitters. You didn't tell me Freda had no boobs. Oh yeah, all bra. It's Pancake City under there.
Freda's a rich white girl in the chair of the itty-bitty titty committee. She did it.
We all know what would happen next. The mob would sharpen their pikes, clean the blood of their most recent victim from their pitchforks, and hunt down the showrunners, who would then be scalped, hung, drawn, quartered, and burned at the stake. Amid accusations of body shaming, the show demanding that young girls live up to men's sexual expectations of them, and the mocking of women's bodies, HBO would have to issue a public apology and the show might even be pulled from the streaming service. The showrunners would be lucky if they ever worked again. But since this show was only mocking guys with small dicks,
that means that it is not illegal.
Nor is it illegal or even objectionable when the titular character, dressed as a man, hits the sheriff in the balls.
No tap!
Very good.
And the executive showrunner not only receives no sanction from the establishment for her sadistic failure of a show, she gets a medal from the president himself only weeks after the show launches. Moving on now to the Womandelorian, previously known as the Mandalorian. And before I get on to this show's female double standards, I do just want to take a minute to express my absolute disgust at how bad a season of television this truly was. It was directionless, had no discernible story, was loaded with contrived scene logistics, had enough plot holes to keep Lizzo fed for a week, had Lizzo in the show, turned the Mandalorian into a manzel in distress, had a villain that didn't show up until about 5 minutes before the end, a pointless short movie that interrupted the show for 40 minutes, horrific looking, bad cosplay level costumes, crude and poorly executed memories, and the central heroes are cultists who force small children to wear helmets permanently. Suddenly, Chinese foot binding doesn't look all that bad by comparison, but most heinously of all, The Mandalorian Season 3 was just so excruciatingly boring. My God, the boredom.
Its energy surrounds us.
The Despot's ally, Greg Owen, described watching The Mandalorian Season 3 as, quote, torture by boredom. Shortly after Season 3 launched, the show's ratings plummeted down a Mos Eisley canyon, and following this shockingly bad season of television from the only popular Star Wars IP left, the Star Wars franchise is broadly considered to be dead. Less than a year after I warned it was dying. The link to that video and to Greg Owen's channel are in the description. At the start of The Womandelorian, a mechanic, someone who Disney Lucasfilm would like us to regard as a lovable ant character, defrauds an alien. She first fleeces him, letting him know while she does so that she's really doing him a favor.
I should charge you more, considering now I gotta work boom to Eve.
What the?
Yeah, me? You know, I do have a life.
Then we get our reveal.
Right, let's get this thing back together again. Quickly, before he sees you. Go, 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 go. Put those parts back on the speeder. Paint them so they look different.
It turns out she was playing him like a chump the whole time. Disney want us to look at this scene of a working man being conned out of his hard-earned pay and applaud the feisty, clever girl boss for her well-thought-out hustle. Shortly after this casual act of criminal duplicity, we see the swindlerette lovably cuddling her favourite little nephew, the fraudulent spinster with the heart of gold. Now let's replay this scene, but this time I'll make a subtle change.
I don't know what to tell you, pal. I mean, there are a lot of parts missing.
I ask you to help us.
Alright, well, I don't appreciate the tone of voice, but I'll fix it.
Our fate is in your hands.
I should charge you more, considering now I gotta work boom to Eve. Hey, Tell the Jawas the Rhodian left. Right, let's get this thing back together again. Quickly, go, 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 go!
The delusion that Disney have attempted to create has been broken. The lovable aunt now appears for what she is to everyone watching, a rotten crook. Disney expect the viewer to warm to this pound shop Ponzi, not in spite of her being a thief, liar, and fraudster, but because she is a thief, liar, and fraudster. In Hollywood's view, these are positive traits in a woman. How else can a girl survive the patriarchy but by getting out there and putting in some hustle? Disney honestly think the mechanic lady is doing nothing wrong because... in episode, I don't know, 6, maybe 7, the Womandelorian demands control over a group of Mandalorians so she can take them to war.
I've come to reclaim my fleet.
It's no longer your fleet, is it? I'm now in command.
Then I challenge you.
The Womandelorian proceeds to Mary Sue the Peacenik into submission in an appallingly edited fight sequence. To give one instance of the pathetic editing, watch the Womandelorian's right hand in this scene.
Enough Mandalorian blood has been spilled by your own hands.
Of course, we the audience are supposed to be very impressed with the Womandelorian's display of girl power boss bitchery, but let's see what happens when we reverse the sexes.
I'm taking your fucking army to go invade a planet. Now fuck off.
He's clearly a bad guy with nefarious designs, but when a woman gang presses a group of free people into her army of conquest, it's not illegal forced conscription being carried out by a warlord because it's a woman. So...
that means that it is not illegal.
The Womandelorian saves the Manzel in distress DeLorean not once...
what happened?
I saved your life.
But twice. In the span of about 5 minutes. Later, Mando will drop to his knees and beg that he be allowed to publicly fillet his rescuer.
This belongs to you. While exploring Mandalore, I was captured, and this blade was taken from me. Bo-Katan rescued me and slayed my captor. She defeated the enemy that defeated me. Would this blade then not belong to her?
In other recent Star Wars productions, we have seen Obi-Wan rescued by a strong, powerful woman who holds off an entire squad of stormtroopers by herself so Obi-Wan can flee with the women and children and men. He is also led around by a female toddler.
What are you doing?
Maybe they can give us a ride to the spaceport.
But it's not safe.
And while we're on the topic of Disney Star Wars, gone are the days of men taking just and brutal revenge against desert savages that torture and murder women. Now we get this. Yes, I have used that joke in 3 previous videos, and no, I'm not sorry. In fact, in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, the lead character, Reva, chops off a woman's hand.
You have no rights here. We're not under the Empire's...
Attempts to murder an unarmed fugitive fleeing the scene.
You'll never find us all.
Threatens a man's life to extort information from a crowd of peasants.
Tell me where the Jedi is, or this man and his family die!
Participates in the hunting down of a young Jedi, then oversees his public execution. Attempts to murder the Grand Inquisitor. Tortures a child.
Your choice is made.
Destroys a fleeing rebel ship which posed no threat.
Right behind you.
Breaks into and ransacks a farmhouse, injuring the couple who lived there. And gives Luke a lifetime of trauma by chasing after him in the desert in an attempt to murder him. But it's all okay because she was really a good guy all along. Her psychopathic mass murderer war criminal persona was just an act so that she could get close to Vader and take him out. Also, she's a woman, so her war crimes are
not illegal.
And anyway, she decided not to murder this pre-adolescent child in the end. So, new achievement. Total moral redemption. From the perspective of Disney Lucasfilm, we're supposed to forget about her crimes, embrace her as a hero, and look forward to the planned spin-off and the entire reason for an Obi-Wan Kenobi show in the first place, the Reva show.
Reva has been trying to adjust to her life after leaving the Empire. She was a genocidal war criminal, now she's just one of the guys.
But seriously, why is her head still on her shoulders? She just tried to murder Luke Skywalker. She's a war criminal. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the same guy who killed, not wounded, killed Darth Maul, turned Anakin Skywalker into a lava-fried Sith whose last joy will be wanking off to the memory of his wife with the one limb Obi-Wan was good enough to leave him with, who stone-cold executed a pig-nosed outlaw for hassling Luke, who aided Luke in killing tens of thousands of people on board the Death Star, who smoked General Grievous. This guy is just going to walk away and let this bitch live? Of course he is, because it's current year, and in current year, men are no longer allowed to dispense justice.
I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
In Disney Star Wars, men just hang around looking sad when they catch up with the perpetrator of attempted infanticide who has just come off the back of a war crimes rampage. Now let's take a look at the Enfys Nest helmet reveal from Solo. I'm not gonna lie, I have absolutely no reason to include it in this video, I just wanted to laugh at it. One thing you will never see in any Lucasfilm production today is a man saving a woman, because in modern Hollywood,
it is illegal.
Ophma fights her own battles. Minnie Jovovich don't need no Pan. All she needs to save herself is an empowering vision of a miserable, lonely, childless existence.
Wendy can be our mother.
Goodness, no. I don't even know if I want to be a mother.
Wendy can be our mother.
No.
Ant-Man's mostly peaceful protester daughter doesn't need her superhero dad to break her out of Kang's lair. She does it herself. Though Ant-Man will need saving from a strong, empowered woman, obviously. Ant-Man's daughter can also get away with spitting in her father's face at his own table, belittling his achievements and making him out to be a punk in front of the entire family.
And what do you do now? Sign books?
But that's fine because filial duty is patriarchal and Ant-Man is a middle-aged white man who needs to be put in his place. Now, if this had been a boy insulting his mother...
And why were you? She called out for you. She called your name. And you weren't there because you never did. And you think I'm a coward? You're wrong. I'm not a coward. You're the coward. I'm not a coward.
It would be understood by all watching that there is only one just response to such behavior.
10 lashes.
This will serve as a fine segue into the next section of this video, but first things first. There was, of course, a time when characters were not written in the doublethink, dual moral system paradigm that Hollywood has constructed, and within which all of its modern trash is created. In Starship Troopers, the women didn't get any special treatment because they were women. They were expected to conduct themselves professionally and competently. When a female trainee accidentally kills another trainee in a training exercise because she clearly cannot handle a weapon or deal with combat stress, she's out of there. They pack her ass off home. When Diz shows up and starts acting like a boss bitch, demanding a spot in the best boot camp squad, she doesn't get special treatment.
You specifically requested transfer from Fort Cronkite to this training unit?
Sir, I heard it was the best, sir.
It is the best. But what makes you think you're good enough?
There are no diversity quotas here. You're either good enough, or you're not. Period. And not the kind that feminists like to talk endlessly about while pretending that society doesn't talk about it enough or that it's a taboo subject.
But what makes you think you're good enough?
At first, the drill instructor goes easy, not because she's a girl, but because he wants to give her a chance to show what she's got. And when she hits him, he dispenses with obliging indulgence. There is no girl boss choreography in this movie. She loses the fight because of course she loses the fucking fight. She's a small woman fighting an experienced soldier, but she still gets into the squad because she's brave. She doesn't need to prove that she's strong and capable of beating up men twice her size. She doesn't need to demonstrate physical dominance. She just needs to show that she has the right attitude, that she has
what it takes to be a citizen.
Of course, in modern movies, this is no longer the case. A woman must not only be brave and spiteful.
I don't want you wasting your life.
At least I'm still trying to do something with mine.
She must also be a girl boss who beats every man she comes across. Because only by imitating the physical brutality of a violent man can a woman truly be regarded as strong. Today, Liz, in spite of her obvious bravery and determination, would be regarded as weak by the donut-soft, pansy-ish, congenial right-think bubble of easily offended nepotism babies and diversity hires that infest modern Hollywood writers' rooms. They would look at a script like Starship Troopers and, horrified by its accurate portrayal of female physical limitations, make the inevitable and predictable change of turning Liz into a girl boss that kicks the drill sergeant's ass, becomes squad leader, rejects Johnny Rico, has a lesbian relationship with some hot young thing, holds Johnny Rico in her arms as he gasps out his last breath, captures the brain bug, and saves the day. Because only by doing all that can a woman be regarded as strong in modern Hollywood. In Thor: Love and Thunder, Natalie Portman steals Thor's...
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
Of course. Natalie Portpeoplekind steals Thor's hammer and claims along with it the title of the Mighty Thor.
Look at me. I want to keep fighting. I'm the Mighty Thor.
Brave, stunning, and magnificent. She's a total slay queen, and everyone should applaud. When Gore the God Butcher takes Thor's magical weapon so that he can use it to increase his own power, you know, the exact same thing that Natalie Portpeoplekind did, he is neither brave nor stunning. He's evil. A villain that must be destroyed, preferably by the updated Mighty Thor after the OG has failed. Prior to this heroic intervention, Natalie Portpeoplekind had been warned by OG Thor that if she used her hammer again, it would kill her.
That hammer is killing you. Every time you use it, it's draining all of your mortal strength, leaving your body unable to fight the cancer.
But being the Mighty Thor, she makes the heroic decision to take up her hammer and save the day. Because women are allowed to make the heroic sacrifice. In The Last Jedi, when Finn tries to achieve what the Spartans called
a beautiful death,
he is prevented from doing so by an even more diverse character. And we can't have Eric going full-on kamikaze to stop the Sea Witch. He'll lie unconscious somewhere while Ariel, updated for a modern audience, takes care of the heroics. Let's move on now to everyone's favourite hero. I could go on for hours talking in depth about Guyladriel's crimes, but instead I will just list some of her most egregious acts. She breaks into a peaceful cave troll's home and brutally murders her.
His name is Robert Paulson.
She one-ups her friend and calls him a bitch-ass punk to his face.
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
She disobeys her king's orders to return to Valinor so that she can return to Middle-earth and continue on a life of blood and vengeance. After being saved by the sailors of Numenor, she arrives in their land and immediately insults their queen and starts making demands.
It is because of the elves that you were given this island. What? Surely you can spare a few planks and a rudder. If blood be the price of passage, I will pay it. I have no need of your welcome.
She humiliates a group of young men in a completely unnecessary, showy exhibition of her martial skills. She convinces Numenor to send an army to Middle-earth, an escalation of a war that did not concern Numenor, and which will result in the deaths of almost all of the soldiers sent. In battle, she again indulges herself in some gaudy exhibitionism, cutting an orc in half while hanging upside down from her horse. In an attempt to extort information from a prisoner of war, she threatens to torture his soldiers to death.
Perhaps we should bring our prisoners into the sunlight.
She makes a sacred vow to commit genocide on a vast scale.
Your kind was a mistake. And even if it takes me all of this age, I vow to eradicate every last one of you.
She violently assaults a prisoner.
Perhaps I shall begin by killing you. You slavering
Guyladriel. She tries to murder her friend Halbrand. She refuses Sauron's peace offer, and in response to his proposal of a political marriage to ensure peace, says the following.
You will die because of me!
Guyladriel's entire personality is based on that of an ultra-aggressive, hyper-egotistical man. She leads her squad of soldiers around with no regard for their well-being. She massacres Robert Paulson with not a hint of remorse. On the contrary, we see in this murder the same wanker exhibitionism she will display in her emasculation of the young men in Numenor and her butchering of enemies on the field of battle. She's extremely abrasive, not bothering to ingratiate herself with anyone. Her way of doing things is simple. She makes demands and others will either fall in line with those demands or get out of the way. That is totalitarian behavior. She's humorless, sexless, pursues her goals with a single-minded determination that borders on insanity. She's about as charming as a Mordor diplomat.
The halfling was dear to thee, I see. Know that he suffered greatly at the hands of his host. Who would have thought one so small could endure so much pain?
She relies far too much on brute force. If a man possessed these personality traits, his behavior would be described by the people who write nauseating dross, like Rings of Power, as toxic masculinity. When a woman does it,
there's a tempest in me. It swept me to this island for a reason. And it will not be quelled by you, Regent.
She's strong, powerful, and assertive. When she spits racialist insults into the face of an enemy,
you slavering.
She's forceful and empowered. When a man does the exact same thing,
You Jewish bitch.
he's evil and needs to hang. Moving on now to She-Hulk, a show that was so bad that, following its overwhelmingly negative reception, the showrunners tried to save face by pretending that they knew all along how terrible it was and were just doing it to troll everyone. In a montage which seems to be product placement for Tinder, Jen burns through a load of prospective guys before settling on Chad Alpha, who impresses her with his Chad good looks and alpha personality. Jen takes Chad Alpha home and fucks him. She then shows up the next morning in her original non-Hulk form, having previously interacted with Chad in Hulk form only. Chad is unimpressed with Jen's non-Hulk iteration and unceremoniously takes off. The message is clear. Men are shallow assholes that are only interested in hot bitches and will ghost the second a girl is vulnerable enough to show up without makeup and a wonder bra. Jen, a girl who was just trying to find a good man, is left the victim of yet another dismissive, toxic male. Men are filth. Now, let's reverse genders.
I want to play a game.
Hey, it's good to finally meet you in person.
The fuck is that?
Oh, is something wrong?
It's a freckle. That wasn't on your profile pic.
I have a few photos on there.
You lied to me. You're a fucking liar.
If a show or movie today showed a hot guy going through women on Tinder dates like they were job applicants, what do you think would be the reaction?
Outrageous, vicious crime.
The show would be criticised for encouraging men to view women as disposable sex objects, and sexist for depicting women as pathetic and desperate. When a man does it, it's
outrageous, vicious crime.
But when a woman does it,
that means that it is not illegal.
Or how about if the man, let's call him Tyler, has a load of flex photos on his profile, shows up to his date in a $5,000 suit and Rolex, then after a drunken, steamy night, the girl wakes up and realises that the apartment she's in isn't the suave penthouse she was expecting, it's actually a bit of a dump. Tyler casually explains that the suit and Rolex are just cheap imitations. He works as a salesman and his boss insists that he present an image of success, as he calls it. But hey, it works great on dates, right? Haha.
Outrageous, vicious crime.
But that's not at all like the Jen situation, when she baits Chad Alpha with She-Hulk, then expects us to call him an asshole for taking off when she switches back to plain Jane Jen. No, she was just being real and honest, but Tyler, he deceived and misled a vulnerable young woman to get into her panties. And when she angrily storms out because Tyler isn't the American Psycho she was hoping for,
Fuck you.
we're fully behind her. You go, girl. Now, sexual objectification. Presenting actors and actresses on screen in sexualized clothing, or lack thereof, preferably, for the purposes of eliciting mild, or sometimes more than mild, sexual excitement in the viewer. To be clear, sexual objectification is a good thing. We should be able to look at the most beautiful examples of the male and female form and admire those forms, and the hard work of the people who make themselves paragons of that form. That is not pornographic. Sexual objectification is a celebration of the human form for aesthetic pleasure and mild sexual arousal presented through the medium of art. Sexual objectification in film carries on an artistic tradition that goes back thousands of years to the beauty of the human form being presented on clay pottery. Pornography is the desecration of the human form for base autosexual gratification presented through the medium of a motel spy cam. 200 people are quite comfortable sitting together in a theatre watching Chris Hemsworth show off his world-class body, but those same 200 people would not be comfortable sitting together to see Chris Hemsworth in a three-way with his co-stars, during which female Thor, hammer in hand, of course, gets While once both sexes could be exhibited on screen in a sexually objectified form, over the last few years, a double standard has emerged in sexual objectification. This double standard is perfectly summed up in this scene from Thor: Love and Thunder.
And what about the others? We take off their disguise too.
Oh, no, don't quick us.
It's cool. Disguise go.
Disguise off, cool.
The female members of the audience are encouraged to gaze in sexually titillated arousal at the beautiful male body that took 20 years of agonizing workouts to build.
Should we help out? Eventually. Great.
But male members of the audience cannot be allowed to enjoy looking at the beautiful bodies of women. The female gaze is to be encouraged. The male gaze must be averted. The iconoclastic, book-burning, anti-film feminists who led the charge for the sexual sterilization of on-screen entertainment never tire of criticizing Slave Leia, and have described her as weird, gross, clumsy, and sexist, to give but a few examples of the many negative adjectives these green-haired charlatans have hurled at this icon of cinematic feminine beauty. By the way, if a man were to describe a woman's costume as weird, gross, and clumsy, he would be cancelled and career gulagged. Curiously though, you never hear these same feminists complain about a 21-year-old Tom Cruise dancing around in his underwear in Risky Business, a film released the same year as Return of the Jedi. In this case, when a woman does it,
that means that it is illegal.
But when a man does it,
that means that it is not illegal.
Lucasfilm are probably the worst culprits for the utter desexualization of women on screen. Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, who looks like this in real life, is dressed in dumpy, frumpy rags to conceal her feminine figure as much as possible. Kelly Marie Tran, who looks like this in real life, had a corn sack thrown over her for her role in The Last Jedi. Moses Ingram, who looks like this, was dressed neck to toe in a leather jumpsuit in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series for her comically bad performance as Reva.
You got a Jedi on that farm too?
No.
Why should I believe you?
Oh my sweet soy latte, it is literally impossible for you to be any more wrong on this. Okay, let's unpack this. First, non-men aren't paraded on screen for you to masturbate over. Second, skin-covering costumes are nothing new. Michelle Pfeiffer was dressed head to toe in a leather costume when she played Cat Non-Man in the 90s.
Yes, non-playable sheep, yes she was. Very tight leather, which strongly accentuated a fine female form.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar. The thought of busting Batman makes me feel all dirty.
Katie Sackhoff was dressed neck to toe in Mandalorian armor in the Womandelorian, and she never takes it off. When Mando goes to see her in her castle, she's just hanging out on her throne in full armor, doing absolutely nothing when he arrives, not watching TV in her pajamas, not cooking lunch in short shorts and a belly top. No, just sitting on her throne in full armor. But I mean, what else are you gonna do on a Tuesday afternoon, right? In Boba Fett, Ming-Na Wen is dressed in a frumptacular neck-to-toe uniform that is indistinguishable from the male equivalent, and in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, there is no one on screen who the viewer can confidently identify as an adult human female, but they had no problem forcing an 80-year-old Harrison Ford to do a shirtless scene. Every male actor in Marvel does topless scenes. In order to get ready for these scenes, the actors put themselves through brutal training regimes months prior to shooting, then, leading up to the day of the shoot, starve and dehydrate themselves to look more shredded for the camera. Here's a quote from Chris Hemsworth's trainer, Luke Zocchi, describing how Chris Hemsworth prepares for shirtless scenes. Karen iPhone, if you would.
We start with 3 liters and every day increase by 1 liter, and then by the end, he drinks 7 liters of water. Then around lunchtime before the scene, we cut water completely. This is by no means a healthy thing to do, and I wouldn't recommend that anyone else do this. Chris also spends the last 2 days before filming doing high rep, low weight lifting workouts to build a pump in his muscles. You're basically trying to look as hard and as dense as you can with your muscles and take all the fluid out of your body, and take out as much fat as you can.
Zocchi also said that Hemsworth gets headaches and feels less energetic after his dehydration and carb cycling routine, which are common symptoms of dehydration. Studios expect their actors to put themselves through torturous and unhealthy preparations for their shirtless scenes, and I'm not criticizing that. The actors are well paid, and that's the job. As Omar from The Wire teaches us,
it's all the game though, right?
But the same is absolutely not expected of women. If it was revealed that an actress was putting her health at risk and getting regular headaches because of the brutal physical demands the studio was making on her body,
18 hours in a dress,
that would be considered
outrageous, vicious crime.
But when a man does it,
that means that it is not illegal.
So if women need to look shredded, just CGI on some hard muscle and call it a day. There was a time when women in superhero movies were just as objectified as the men on screen, and our female superheroes were expected to actually look like something resembling a female human being.
meow.
Instead of an amorphous hermaphroditic blob that's been wrapped in a potato sack. But those days are, very unfortunately, gone. The fanatical maniacs infesting Hollywood today are telling you that what you're seeing right now is wrong and must be annihilated for the good of society. These censorious, puritanical woke skulls are no different from the Iranian censors who CGI American actresses to ensure adherence to moral purity laws. Though, in fairness to the Iranians, their CGI is at least much better than modern Hollywood CGI. Gender swaps obviously only ever go in one direction. Here are just a handful of examples. Ghostbusters 2016 and Ocean's 8 were movies where the entire male cast was swapped out with female replacements. Don't hold your breath for a remake of Charlie's Angels starring Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt and Chris Evans and featuring scenes of them kicking some female bad guy ass.
You Jewish bitch.
In 2017, Jodie Whittaker took over as Doctor Who. She quickly became the most unpopular Doctor Who in history, and the series' viewership tanked under her tenureship. A popular 1980s TV show, The Equalizer, was rebooted with Queen Latifah playing the role of the brutal vigilante. Astonishingly, the show flopped and was not well received by audiences.
This world is just looking for a reason to put a young black girl on that side of the fence. Don't help them.
Almost every male character in the MCU has been replaced by a female version of himself. Black Panther was replaced with a 9-year-old girl who weighs less than Lizzo's last meal. Ironheart, played by a strong, diverse female science genius teenage whelp.
You need to be conscious of the way that you look. Walking around here with that ash on your head.
Is the new Iron Man. A similar attempt was made to cast a strong, less diverse, but still female science genius teenage whelp as the new Antman. But her movie bombed, and the character quickly became the most hated in the Ant-Man franchise. A similarly unpopular attempt was made to replace Hulk with She-Hulk. It did not go well. Hawkeye has been replaced by a female Hawkeye whose name I couldn't be bothered looking up. Thor was replaced by Natalie Portpeoplekind as the mighty Thor in Thor Love and Thunder, and Loki has been replaced by female Loki. The previous and considerably more ideologically committed leadership at DC intended to replace Superman with Superwoman and Batman with strong, diverse female Batman. The male heroes would be killed off and the female versions would lead the DC EU going forward. Fortunately for what is left of DC after 6 flops in a row, Warner CEO David Zaslav came in with a rusty chainsaw and went full American Psycho on those productions. A rather pointless cutaway leftover version of Superwoman can be seen among the nausea-inducing kaleidoscopic ruin that is The Flash, and Batwoman was cancelled altogether, despite the movie being finished. I pray to Athena that someone at Warner leaks that movie online. By the way, in the course of researching this video, I discovered that there is a female Patrick Bateman.
I was only 12 years old and I wasn't gonna let Patrick Bateman ruin my life.
Apparently, American Psycho has a sequel called American Psycho 2, All American Girl, starring Mila Kunis. It has It has a 0% critic score and an 18% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Angrier, deadlier, and sexier than ever before.
Ribbed for her pleasure.
In Disney Star Wars, Anakin was replaced as the chosen one who brought balance to the Force by Rey Palpatine. The Mandalorian has been replaced by the Womandelorian. The Force was replaced by the female Force, and Jabba the Hutt was replaced by Lizzo. In Terminator Dark Fate, a thoroughly spiteful movie and thoroughly deserved box office bomb, John Connor was executed and replaced as the savior of mankind by a strong, diverse, female tiny girl.
Hope. Like you.
Now, obviously, you can't gender swap a female role.
It's misogynistic and it's xenophobic.
However, despite this seemingly unbreakable rule that a female role can never be taken over by a man, I was able to find one instance when this has happened. Vanya Hargreaves, played by Page, was replaced with Victor Hargreaves, played by Elliot Page, in the Netflix show Umbrella Academy. So there you go, boys. You can finally look at mainstream entertainment and see in it a gender-swapped reflection of yourselves.
Reflection of myself.
While the deconstruction, humiliation, and belittlement of older men who were heroes in their younger days has become a depressingly predictable feature of modern Hollywood,
there was this one customer that came to me. He wanted to have solid colored drapes in a little girl's room. I said, don't do it. You need butterflies, polka dots, balloons.
older female characters have never and will never suffer similar treatment. Han Solo is an old deadbeat dad, still hanging around with his college roommate, getting stoned and playing space pirate. Luke is an angry old man on Craggy Island who gets angry at kids for showing up on his lawn. Boba Fett, well, still not sorry. In fact, but Leia, She is the brave and stunning leader of the rebellion, despite being so astoundingly incompetent that she allowed the Second Empire, I mean the First Order, to arise from the ruins of defeat to near total dominance of the galaxy, which resulted in the mass genocide of billions of people. The leadership of the New Republic may have been wiped from existence along with their families, but at least no one called them
misogynistic and xenophobic.
Old male characters will be humiliated and destroyed, but old female characters will be glorified. Now, it is my understanding that Eon Productions are currently looking for a new Bond, so to finish this video, I present my pitch for the next James Bond 007. The new movie starts with James Bond getting out of bed fully clothed. For some reason, she was wearing a frumpy dressing gown under the sheets. As she looks in the mirror, we see a chiseled Adonis looking at her adoringly while she ignores him.
So, can I buy you dinner tonight?
James coolly continues to apply her makeup, and without even throwing him a glance, she says, "Oh, it talks. Well, I guess when one of them fucks that good, he's bound to have some drawbacks." She walks out to the balcony and assembles the contents of a briefcase into a miniature sniper rifle. On her way to the roof, she passes an open toilet window. She sees a teenage boy taking a piss and quips, "And I thought I had a small gun." When she reaches her position, she takes aim at her target, a men's rights campaigner whose every living moment spreads more toxic male bile into an already hateful and misogynistic world.
We must ensure an equitable outcome for fathers that have been separated from their children. The current court system is heavily biased in favor of...
During her escape from the mission, she's spotted by an angry group of men who were attending the male terrorist rally, looking to take out their anger on random women. They run at her and begin their assault. She takes them all out with ease, but a large crowd follows after them, chasing her down. She sees a random old man trying to get into his car. She punches him in the face, steals his car keys, and drives off. While in the car, we see her empty some extra cash from the glove compartment into her pockets. Back at headquarters, M, a senile old man, is unhappy with how the operation went, insisting that James should have carried out the job more discreetly. "You need to start showing some respect for this agency, 007. Our men have been fighting international terrorists since long before you were born." "Men, darling, this agency belongs to no man." "It's funny."
"What's that?"
"We've got all this modern equipment, new toys, and the boys to make them go. New ideas and state-of-the-art weapons. And yet, you're still here." James walks out without excusing herself and heads straight over to Q Division. She begins examining the new gadgets by herself when Q comes over and tries to mansplain their function and operation to her. She responds by giving him a well-needed dressing down. "If I needed your help with any of this, I'd ask, while you were playing with your action figures and moaning on Twitter about female superheroes in your little kiddie movies, I was in Siberia, covered in mud and bear blood, fighting terrorists who would cut off your tiny, teeny little winky, stuff it in your mouth and put your head on a pike before you could say, 'Save me, James Bond.' Now run along back to your little troll cave to complain about the latest actress of colour to be cast in an action role, you disgusting little creature."
"Right, well, I'll be around if you require my assistance."
"What is that?"
"Oh, that? Yes, well, that was, in fact, designed for your predecessor. Quite a masterpiece of engineering, if I do say so.
It will be, when it fits a woman." At a high-end casino, Bond is playing poker with a man she suspects of being in league with the villain M was talking about. She cheats, impoverishing the man and sending him to his suite in a panic. Bond heads over to the bar where a besotted man approaches her.
"Good evening, I would..."
"Shut up and buy me a vodka martini."
"A vodka martini for the lady. How would you like that, madam? Shaking off stir."
"I'd like it quickly." After her drink, she leaves the eager gentleman who approached her babbling at the bar and heads toward the penthouse. On her way, Bond runs into two members of the hotel security staff who politely inform her that this is a private area, but she makes quick work of them and walks straight in. The henchman is twice her size, but she easily overpowers him, pins him to the floor and threatens to break his arm if he doesn't talk. From the information she tortures out of him, she discovers the secret location of the villain's hideout, a forest in the Canadian wilderness. She's being flown to the location in a small plane. When the plane is shot down, the pilot bravely keeps the plane stable and manages a miraculously well executed crash landing. Bond quickly exits the plane without checking on the pilot. He rushes after her. Whoa, my God, James, are you alright? That was quite sad. When she demands to know where the winter gear is, he explains that it was destroyed with the plane. Without hesitating, James walks into a nearby bear cave, stabs a sleeping mother bear in the head, kicks her cubs aside, skins the dead creature, and wears its coat as a protective layer. We next see Bond interrogating a guard she has caught. She tortures him for information on how to get into the villain's fortress, but he won't talk. So she pulls out her satellite phone and orders some of her boys to the man's address, which she got from his wallet. Bond's team captures the guard's family and tie them up. Bond shows the guard a video feed of his family and makes him watch while his wife is executed. She then tells him that if he doesn't cooperate, she will have his children tortured to death. He relents and tells her everything. Bond tells her toy boy to stay with the guard and make sure he doesn't escape, then heads over to the villain's lair. After entering the fortress and taking out a small army of minions and an end-of-level boss, Bond comes face to face with the villain. To her mild surprise, it's Alec Trevelyan from GoldenEye. It turns out that he survived the 100-foot fall into a ceramic basin and a giant flaming antenna falling on top of him and then exploding. In the ensuing fight, Bond defeats Alec and holds him dangling over a chasm. There is one last exchange between villain and hero.
For England, James?
Never send a man to do a woman's job. She heads back to the torture chamber to find that the guard has bled to death. The bimbo is in a panic.
James, he just died. I tried to save him, but
Shut up and remove your clothes. We next see Bond riding the bimbo in a very R-rated scene when her phone rings. She puts it on speaker with voice command and MI6 headquarters is flooded with the sound of James Bond getting a good scene to from her bimbo.
007. My God, what's Bond doing?
I think she's just trying to keep on top of things, sir.